All right, well, let's get this panel underway, and we'll get chairs for the panelists at one point. And yeah, a lot of us were surprised to see that our room was so small. So it's going to be standing room only, but that's okay because this panel is all supposed to be about audience interaction, so it should work for us. My name is Paul Proctor, and David Mortman and I have helped put this panel together. We have a number of panelists. I'll be showing you them in a second. I've got notes here on my computer, which I don't want to broadcast to you, but we'll put that up and we'll have all the panelists introduce themselves here in just a second. I want to tell you a little bit about how this panel came about. It was put together essentially to address the issues in disclosure which have not been solved. So one of the things we did was we got vendors, we got end users, and we got researchers together to discuss the issues, and what we want to do is uncover the issues. And rather than sitting here and David and I trying to tell you what we learned during the panel, we're going to let the panelists do that throughout. But there was a few comments that were made. Sorry, I should point out that, let me back up a step. This morning we had a private session which included the people that you see up here, and we basically hashed through the issues. And we've put together some topics, which I'll be showing you in a second, and we're going to go through those topics this afternoon. So having said that, let me go back to the fact that we captured a couple of comments that we want to say an overview about this issue, and then we'll show you the topics. We'll have the panelists introduce themselves. I want to encourage everybody. I want to see hands shooting up and people talking, because that is definitely what this panel is about. We're in a small enough room. I don't think we have microphones to put out in the audience, so I would ask you to please speak up, and we'll repeat the comments or questions as necessary. Okay, so a lot of the issues relate to when to disclose and how much information to disclose. One of the things that we discovered this morning, there's a number of dimensions to this problem that relate to both how big and small the vendors are. See a little bit more about that in a second, but also how big and small the enterprises are. For instance, one of the things we came up with, a topic which we'll be covering, and a theme which ran throughout, is that when the end users were talking, a lot of it related to risk management. This is no longer about protecting yourselves as much as you can. So in other words, there's no longer an assumption that if a patch becomes available, if a vulnerability is disclosed, enterprises no longer take the perspective of, we got to get out there and patch immediately. So this goes to the large enterprises in particular, take a risk management approach. The smaller enterprises tend to look at it as a just tell me if I need to do something and I'll go do it and be done with it. So you're going to see that coming up as we talk. Big and small vendors. One of the things we discovered, and one of the comments that was made this morning, was that the top 10 ISVs pretty much have this figured out. They understand how to do disclosure, how to work with the researchers. However, there were 3 vendors that came up in particular, and this was in the context of sort of the 7 stages of going through grief and where you're at and dealing with vulnerability disclosure as a vendor. And we discovered that Microsoft is pretty much in the acceptance stage. Microsoft works pretty well with the vendors. They figured it out, and they're doing it. Now, Cisco, on the other hand, where's John? I don't want to get hit. Good, he's over there. Cisco, we figured, is moving out of the anger stage and into the acceptance stage.
Hi, I'm John. I'm an alcoholic.
Yes.
You're in the meetings too?
Now Oracle, on the other hand, we have determined that they seem to be moving out of the denial stage and into the anger stage. So just you can think about that as sort of tiers of how the vendors take care of this. But on the most part, the large ISVs are starting to say, yes, vulnerabilities are important. We need to address them. We need to work with the community. And then finally, I would say that we did get a lot of end user perspective. I was pushing that on people quite heavily to know always, how does this impact the end users? And one comment was made that the ones that are disclosed, we don't care about those. The operationalization of security has pushed the patches down. I mean, ops does that. They come out, they test them, they deploy them. It's a process, it's taken care of. Security, on the whole, is worried about the things that they don't know about. Where are the risk areas that might actually be causing a problem? So from a disclosure perspective, the point was made that what we need is more disclosure because we can't fix something or deal with something that we don't know about. Now, you're going to find that that theme comes back. Let me go ahead and, do you want to add any comments while I'm...
I'll jump in.
Here. Go ahead, you comment while I bring up the...
Bring up the slide so you
yes.
comment on.
Okay.
One leads to the other. Or do you want to do so?
Why don't we introduce ourselves? You go first.
Okay, we're going to actually move on to introductions of our panelists. I'm David Mortman. I used to be the Chief Information Security Officer for Siebel Systems.
I'm Michael Sutton. I'm the Director of iDefense Labs.
Making this all the way around, or would you just yell?
You know what? You guys should put your own mics rather than...
I can just yell. I hope you can hear me. I'm Derek Scholl. I manage the team that handles everything having to do with security vulnerability bugs at Sun Microsystems.
My name is David Lesfield. I'm the Chief Research Officer from NGS Software in the UK.
I'm Raven Alder, and I'm here without my employer's hat on.
And I'm Scott Blake. I'm the CISO of Liberty Mutual Insurance, although the opinions expressed are not necessarily those of my employer.
Go ahead.
Pamela Fusco, and I'm here as well as a former Chief Information Security Officer and current Information Security Executive.
Dave Goldsmith. I'm the President of Modisano Security. I also do a lot of research stuff too.
And you can't see this, but it actually says, in for the squeaking Tom Tachik. Tom lost his voice. He participated in the panel this morning, but he's doing a fine job. He'll get up here if he really needs to start squeaking at you vigorously. John, go ahead.
John Stewart, Vice President, Chief Security Officer, Cisco Systems.
And Steve Lipner, Director of Security Engineering Strategy at Microsoft and formerly head of the Security Response Center at Microsoft.
Jerry Dixon, U.S. CERT, Homeland Security.
So I'd like to kick us off by saying that, see, we have Cisco standing next to Microsoft, and nobody is wasting nobody. Did somebody
it's
get
a
that
sad day, a very sad day.
Did somebody get that on a camera phone? All right, so here's our topics. These are the things that came out. We basically went through 2 hours of vigorous discussion about the topic. These are the things that surfaced. When to disclose. What I'm going to do is hit all 7 of these, and then we're going to come back and we're going to go through them one at a time, and we'll hit the panelists. So when to disclose and what to disclose, probably the key issue in this whole debate. Disclosure, does it work? We actually came up with some examples this morning about how the evolution of disclosure has led to some good examples of how it's actually benefiting. And we'll talk about that. Parity. This came up particularly from the vendor's perspective, well actually from the vendors and the end user's perspective, is in disclosure, should there be a preferred list? And we're going to want your opinions about that, because certainly the panel has some good ones. So should some people get early information, larger enterprises, backbone providers, people that might be in a position to be at more risk? Third-party fixes. This also generated a lot of good discussion about, should you get your fixes from somebody other than the vendor? Should you trust them? Should you use them? So we'll be interested in hearing about whether you do that. The impact of paying for vulnerabilities. There's a number of programs out there for researchers actually making money by disclosing those to various parties, and we'll get into that. And then finally, believe it or not, I referred to this at the end of the day as the golden goose of panel discussion, because it generated the most discussion and the least agreement. And you'll see this. We're going to leave the most time at the end as we go through these. I'm going to try to leave. We're in here for another hour and 15 minutes, and we're going to try to leave at least 20, 25 minutes at the end to discuss this topic. What happens if you have a vulnerability without a good fix or workaround to disclose or not to disclose? So with that, let's go ahead and hit this first topic, when to disclose and what to disclose. And I know that one perspective was given this morning, which was essentially what I regarded as sort of old school thought, which was, hey, you're a researcher. You're the one that found the information. Shouldn't it be up to you to disclose whatever you want, whenever you want? So why don't we start there? So who wants to start us off? And you guys that are standing, and sorry for that, you guys can pick up those mics out of the stands and use them until we get chairs in here.
I'm not so sure I trust the table.
Steve's trying to comment.
No, Steve's just trying to get the mic out. I mean, but I'll comment. It's the finder finds the information, and it's his or hers to do with as they wish. But we believe that, I believe at least, that the best thing for the user community, who we're all attempting to protect, is some sort of a coordinated disclosure in which the developer has a chance to address the problem before details go out widely.
No, actually, I took that down because I'm going to bring up other notes and comments. We're not going to be displaying the topics throughout. That was pretty much the only thing. We'll come back to the topics one at a time.
Agreeing with Steve in that respect, from a researcher's point of view, we as the researcher have the small picture. Let's say we find one bug. The vendor is enamored with all of these, armored with all the extra information surrounding that. And there could be a larger issue right next to the issue that the research found, and then in disclosing that without coordination in the vendor, you could open up a larger can of worms than you initially anticipated. So I'm in complete agreement with Steve, because the vendor has the larger picture.
I think that for the most part we're going to have agreement on the fact that it's a good thing for the end user community if the vendor has an opportunity to make that patch. I'd actually like to throw another question out to the panel. What about a situation where you have a vendor who's unresponsive, who will not produce a patch? When is it appropriate to disclose, or is it ever appropriate to disclose?
I mean, I think this is a really tough one, right? Because from a researcher perspective, you're often put in a situation, and sometimes one of the things I think is also difficult to understand is a lot of times when we think of researchers, we're only thinking of people that are independent third-party researchers. But let's include people that find vulnerabilities in software as just a general categorization. And maybe they work for companies that are enterprises. Maybe they're working for companies that are independent researchers. It depends. But I think one of the challenges here is if it's not getting fixed, what other means are really available to address it? And I think one of the things that got addressed in the intro was the idea that the vulnerability disclosure community, or the vulnerability community, came from a place where it was commonplace to just post, right? It wasn't even necessarily coordinate with the vendor, or even communicate with the vendor, except through bug track. That would pretty much be how you told the vendor that there's a vulnerability in their software. And that started to evolve. People started to talk to vendors, but it was difficult in the beginning. There was a lot of transition for vendors to take researchers seriously, which is how we ended up in a situation where there was a culture at all that said it's okay to publish vulnerability information and exploits, right? That's another thing that used to be really common for anyone doing research. Exploits came right along with it on BugTrack. If you read the archives of BugTrack, you did not see a lot of advisories that were just advisories like we see today, where they say, here's the risk, here's where you get the patch. It was, here's the risk and here's the exploit, good luck.